Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. Recently, some media reported that Apple may stop research and development of its 5G baseband chip project and continue to use Qualcomm's baseband chips and pay patent fees to Qualcomm. Regarding this decision, the market speculates that Apple gave up research and development mainly because it has been unable to develop a 5G baseband chip that meets Apple's requirements so far. It can be said that Apple has not wanted to use Qualcomm's baseband. Although they have used Infineon and Intel's baseband chips in the past, these choices are due to Apple's dissatisfaction with Qualcomm and the measurement of market share. However, the arrival of the 5G era has forced Apple to reach a settlement with Qualcomm and continue to use Qualcomm's baseband chips and pay patent fees. But at the same time, in order to reduce its dependence on Qualcomm, Apple spent $1 billion to purchase Intel's baseband chip business and began to develop its own baseband chips. However, 4 years later, Apple's self-developed 5G baseband chip still has not been released and instead faces the dilemma of shutting down. To understand why baseband chips are so difficult for Apple, China can look at it from a technical perspective. First of all, the baseband chip is not just a technology, it is the communication module in the mobile phone, which is responsible for the communication between the mobile phone and the base station of the mobile communication network, and modulates, demodulates, codes, and decodes the uplink and downlink wireless signals. A 5G baseband chip not only needs to support 5G networks, but also needs to be compatible with 2G divided by 3G divided by 4G and other networks. Different networks have complex signal, frequency, permutation and combination requirements, which require long-term accumulation of patents, technology and experience. And Apple is relatively weak in communication technology, which is equivalent to starting from scratch. Secondly, although Apple's self-developed chip technology performs well in other fields, it is relatively lacking in experience and accumulation in communication technology. If Apple wants to develop a baseband chip comparable to Qualcomm, it needs to invest a lot of manpower, material and financial resources, but the investment so far has not made corresponding progress. This forces Apple to reevaluate its capabilities and resources to see whether it can truly develop 5G baseband chips that meet market demand. The importance and complexity of baseband chips. As one of the core components of mobile phones, baseband chips not only have an important impact on communication quality and speed, but are also related to mobile phone power consumption and stability. In the 5G era, baseband chips are even more important. In addition to supporting high-speed and stable data transmission and communication functions, they also need to meet higher security and reliability requirements. Therefore, for a company like Apple that pursues technology leadership and product quality, it is indeed a difficult task to independently develop a 5G baseband chip that meets its own requirements. In addition, patent requirements in baseband chips are also an important factor. Different communication standards and formats require the use of corresponding patented technologies, which requires companies to have sufficient patent authorization and technology accumulation when developing baseband chips to ensure product compliance and stability. At this point, Apple may feel that the investment and risks in developing its own baseband chips are too great and cannot be compared with professional communications giants like Qualcomm. Possibility of cooperation between Apple and Huawei. Faced with the dilemma of self-developed baseband chips, some netizens said that Apple could also consider cooperating with Huawei. After all, as the world's leading communication equipment supplier, Huawei's baseband chips are highly recognized in the international market, and their performance and reliability are trustworthy. Apple's choice to introduce Huawei's baseband chips can not only get rid of its dependence on Qualcomm, but also obtain industry-leading communication technology. It is undoubtedly a good choice for Apple. However, the possibility of such cooperation still depends on the commercial considerations and willingness of all parties to cooperate. In the current political context, the US government has imposed a series of technical restrictions and sanctions on Huawei, which has also brought great uncertainty to Apple's cooperation with Huawei. At the same time, competition between Apple and Huawei in terms of intellectual property rights and market share is also a factor that cannot be ignored. Therefore, although the possibility of cooperation between Apple and Huawei exists, there are currently no clear signs that the two parties will cooperate. From the current point of view, Apple's decision to abandon the self-development of 5G baseband chips does not mean that they have given up their pursuit of technological innovation and independent research and development, but a rational decision based on reality and market demand. As an important component in mobile phones, the complexity of development and research of baseband chips is far beyond China's imagination and requires rich technical accumulation and market experience. Although Apple has not yet developed a 5G baseband chip that meets its own requirements, China believes that they will continue to work hard to achieve the goal of independent research and development in future development. For consumers, whether they are using Qualcomm or Huawei baseband chips, the ultimate goal is to obtain better communication quality and user experience. This is the most important thing.